Good morning, Kremena. I'm so privileged. I'm so honored to have you for a morning session, having in mind you're not a morning person.
Thank you, Stoyan. I was literally just making jokes with some of my friends saying what changed is that I really wanted to catch up with you, and the morning session with a coffee and having a awesome chat seemed like the best way to do it. Let's have a podcast recording at 9 a.m. Why not live? Yeah,
For
why
some
not?
people, for some people, it's the middle of the day. So, but yes, there's a lot of people that they haven't woken up yet. So
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
great having you, and thanks everybody for tuning in to Productivity Mastery episode 189, meaning there's 188 more episodes with fantastic individuals. So make sure to subscribe to the podcast. If you've been listening to this podcast, subscribe, because that gives us a chance to invite even more exciting, amazing guests, like my guest this morning, Kremena Yordanova, ex-digital director at Reebok, spent 17 years in the world of corporate, leading teams, making a difference, and now she's on another journey that she will share about. But I can't wait to learn from her. So, Cremena, we shall get going, I guess.
Also,
Did you get your
well,
coffee? You ready?
coffee is ready. I'm a big believer in having substances in the morning that will engage the brain and everything like that. Although I do have a tea brand, and I wanted to mention that being heavily caffeinated used to be my thing for so long. When you mentioned 17 years in corporate, I almost convinced myself that there is nothing I can't do with the right amount of coffee. So that used to be my kind of credo and motto for a long, long time. And I have many sayings like, I don't trust people that don't drink coffee, statements that are completely outdated in my, vocabulary. But I'm super excited and touched that we get the chance to spend some time together. Wanted to learn more from you and also share some of the maybe tricks and findings around leadership that lately I'm digesting and making sure that more people get to know how I build my career, because I think there is a big power in sharing our own stories. We need more different voices on the table, different approaches to leadership, and completely different paths. I think it's fascinating when we have crowd of approaches to a misunderstood sometimes topic of both productivity and also what a leadership nowadays is requiring from leaders in general. So thanks for having me. We met in Bulgaria, which is super, super cool for me because I rarely get the chance to speak with someone that I don't need to explain my cultural background. So I'm born in Bulgaria, recently 20 years now. I'm based in the Netherlands, Amsterdam, sunny today, out of maybe luck or maybe a sign that we need to be taking better serious care of the planet. But nevertheless, 20 years ago, I moved here, stayed here for quite some time, built my impressive career for some people within organizations. And the last year, I've been pivoting, reconsidering what did I learn so far and how can I be of help to others. I was heavily impressed by productivity tactics before, and then I definitely mastered some pieces and always been beautifully enhancing supply chain. I started my career in supply chain. It's not a massive surprise. And then I transitioned into leadership within the marketing team. And what I remember the most is that people were telling me that's not really how a career path goes. Rarely anyone from supply chain goes to marketing. And I remember vividly asking some friends, like, what is this marketing all about? We're talking ages ago, right? And they're like, wow, Carmela, you have to do this and do that. And mind you, I don't have any formal education on marketing. So I take a big pride in owning the idea of if you apply your common sense and you really want to believe that your heart is in the right topic, you can learn anything. This striving to learning more things is always been pushing me forward or pushing me in directions that really fit me well. And I think leadership nowadays is really a top topic that requires a lot of leaders to just optimize their skills where they best fit, rather than crafting careers that maybe are a blueprint from someone else. So I speak a lot about authentic leadership and about inner power and how one can harvest those skills to really become a better version. And if not better, it's the true version of how they want to come across, lead, and really deeply stemming from you can do both. You can have a thriving career and you can have a really good spiritual practice, which is something that I keep doing. And I just can't see why we agree on this duality that one cannot coexist with the other. So um, I deeply, deeply believe that this is possible. Not only possible, I've been doing it for 17 years, and one without the other is just really robbing you from opportunity to showcase what you're capable of. And again, for the right reasons, hopefully. Yeah.
Well, thank you for this introduction, Kremena. I just want to invite everybody listening to the podcast, watching it live on LinkedIn, to, if you're here with us, if you have a question to Kremena, feel free to post it in the comments. We'll get some questions. Talking
And
about your, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
we agreed, ask the most difficult questions, and
Yes,
because then it makes it more difficult and more interesting for both of us. Thank you.
difficult and inconvenient is very welcome. I just want, you mentioned a couple of times you've been, 17 years working in Reebok slash Adidas. Um, and And I wonder if you can give us a glimpse. I mean, now you're not part of the company anymore, but what what was your how would a day in the life of a digital director Cremena look like? Let's say the last 12 months of you being at the job.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think the last 12 months were really all about making sure that your team is okay. I think in my role, we had such a good team. And I want to shout out to my previous team because I do know that they were all superstars and that they're up in the world doing amazing work with other massive brands. But what we were busy with and what my day looked like is that you touch bases with your team on regular or on a basis that allows them to function the best they can. And we obviously have a plan that is very loosely put together because there was always space for emergency. I love our contingency plans that you always create a 20% space to leave a space for something unknown. We worked closely for more than 3 years, expanded team, a smaller team. And when you have a core team that knows what the tasks are, your job becomes extremely, extremely easy to one extent, but extremely complex to other extent because you're there for not just providing the input, making sure that the KPIs are not only met but over deliver, but being there for the people that actually contribute to the value you're bringing as organization. The previous years, all eyes were on digital, and I was heading up the marketing team for e-commerce. And we had this joke going around before everyone was speaking about, oh, digital first, and then 2020 happened. It was digital only. Literally, that moment when all eyes were on us made the team so much stronger, so much more comprehensive about what the boundaries are and where they stop and where what is our responsibility, what is not our responsibility. And I think that was great because the past 12 months we could clearly state, okay, this is something we can do and this is something we can't do. And there is always wishful thinking of educating what's the premises of your role and what's not. The best part is that those 20% of the time that we spoke about, leave it for maybe an emergency, maybe something that is out of the blue, was always optimized by people picking up my brain. And I love that expression because often you get the chance to be involved in projects that require some of your time and effort, but sometimes it's just an opinion. And we didn't get the chance to execute some of the best campaigns that we had in mind. And a lot of my work was to make sure that we don't get too attached to plans that we know that we might not be able to foresee. But you need to keep engaging your team to say, hey, I know that was a great idea. It's not the timing for it now. So it's a lot of stakeholder management, but with the right attitude towards keeping the motivation within the team, making sure that the business acumen still is there. We keep on over delivering, but not at the expense of forgetting our own priorities, which is we have a bulletproof, so to say. And I hate those words, but we have plans that we know deliver because we've been doing it over and over again and creating space for additional creativity that you don't get super attached to it because guess what? We might not get the budget allocation to execute. We might not get the right channels, and it's almost like an art. When people ask me how is your day looking like, half of the time is you know exactly how it will go. The other times when something happens that you're like, I didn't see this coming, those are the moments where your artistry can come and you can orchestrate together with your team some other decision making and hopefully even better things out there. Yeah. Now that you ask me, I really wanted to say hi to my previous team. I know some of them will join in. They can ask some questions, but it was big fun. We had a lot of fun while crafting campaigns, not just for the consumers, but also um, we took brand keeping seriously because everyone that was working for the brand had invested a lot in it. Yeah,
Shout out to Team Reebok, who's
X
joining
team,
us.
X.
Next Team Reebok. So look,
Yeah.
I love that you're sharing, and the whole concept of productivity, and we can redefine it during this conversation. But one of the core ideas in the
Mhm.
whole productivity space is that productivity is about being intentional.
Mm,
We had last week, we had the David Allen, one of the the fathers of productivity, right? Like the GTD guy, getting things done. um, One of the key concepts is, if you want to be productive, productivity is about deciding what you want. It's about being intentional. It's about being clear about what is the desired outcome,
mm,
what is the intention behind whatever it is you do. And David likes to say, if you go on a vacation and you want to relax and you're not relaxing, that's not a productive vacation.
mm,
If you want to have dinner and everybody to be happy and they're not happy because the food is not good, that's not a productive dinner. So productivity is really about producing what you want. Putting that in a context of what you did as a director, being responsible for many people, I wonder what was the thought process of deciding what to focus on, right?
mm.
Because you can be everywhere. So did you have any kind of a process on a weekly, on a daily basis to intentionally decide what to prioritize?
It's a very good question because the priorities change quite rapidly, especially in the digital field, and everyone has the new misunderstanding tactics with strategy. And I think that for a lot of those decision making, it's like, oh, have you tried this or have you tried that? It does require a lot of um, strong opinions around this is going to move the needle and this is not going to move the needle. Of course, we have quarterly meetings, and of course, you have the beautiful OKRs that we've been using for the time being. But I must admit that I'm more interested in not the processes, but what takes people and how do we get the best input from individuals. Because half of my work is to protect the team's creativity. I think that marketing is misunderstood when we blend only data driven information. And often we played with intentional decision trees. Some of my team members were making fun of me because it's like, Kremena, you have a whole forest of them. Because if we do this, we have to do that, just to streamline a bit of the process of thinking of, is this worth our effort? So we would implement those decision trees so that when an opportunity comes, we need to be able to figure out, is this a real opportunity or is this something that someone saw another brand doing that might be impactful, and do we have all the ingredients there? We streamline it by really making sure everyone is empowered to use those tools. So anyone from my team can decide, is this worth pursuing? What it will be taking us as both resources, time, is it aligning with any of our personal goals? If someone from my team wants to try something new, we all have to agree on, let's support that person, because we can't do it in isolation. So what I'm more interested in is, how do you build trusting organizations that priorities are clearly outlined and everyone knows what's the motive behind it. Decision tree is one of the methodology, or you can make it pretty, you can make it really useful for everyone to see, but often it's what's motivating people to really put it forward. And how can we hear more ideas, so it's not, well, management said so, we have to do it. We've always had a lot of freedom, which I don't take lightly, because you cannot have creativity and productivity without having the freedom of having a team that can decide those things. So, yeah, it's a fine line between data driven decision tactics that keep changing every 5 minutes. Um, you'll be surprised how many times we've been asked to do campaigns that we know the outcome won't be there, and we just need to decide on, let's do A/B testing, because we also don't want to be the team that is remembered like they never try anything new. No, you have space and time when you want to try things. We do piloting on smaller markets. If it works, we scale, just like any other organization would do. But it gave us a lot of freedom to trust our intuition of, like, this might work, this might not. It only works when you have a highly engaged team. And I think that we don't speak often about productivity with what does it take to keep your team highly engaged. And that trust amongst team members is really, really crucial. I take big pride in how things develop in my team. And honestly, it was not overnight, and it is not given that you do a couple of workshops and it will work out. It is something that you need to cultivate and give people the chance to get the best out of their work for the right reason. So the right reason will not be only the KPIs for the company. It will be that maybe someone from your team learned something extremely useful for them. We always share our aha moments. I know that some of my team members are like, oh, do we need to have another reflection? And I'm like, yeah, because if you don't reflect on what went really well and what went really bad, often we just might do it again. So we had this famous wall of shame. So everyone will put the most horrible campaign they put out there. I I'm very proud owner of a couple of them that even to this day they make me giggle. It's ridiculous to think that that's what I thought it's a good campaign, but that's what I was doing back then. And we keep it there as a reminder. Is like, wow, that was really not a great campaign. But I think it's very useful to have that, and it's not to use it as a, oh, shameful tool. And no, it's just to make sure that we all can allow failures to be a teachable moment, rather than, oh, let's not talk about it, unless it's really a massive thing that we just don't want to share with people, saying like, ah, that was not a clever idea, and we decide to say, did we learn our lesson on this one? And if so, yeah, let's not do it again. I think a very open communication with your team members will always benefit both productivity, creativity, any KPI you can think of. It will also create trust in your ability to prioritize projects. And often it can be only 5 minute discussion with your senior leadership saying, like, we're not doing that. You don't even need to explain why, because we've done it 20,000 times, and here is the deck to support that decision. I like operating in those places where you you do know what you're doing, and therefore people trust your um, ability. So that was like the last year. Yeah, we crushed the numbers, which is always exciting. I've always been very um, achieving orientated. And then I read an article saying that every highly achieving person has a deep traumas. And I was like, oh, I need to reconsider what's going on. But I think the right amount of coming from our geography as well, I think there is nobody that can disagree um, what what that region does for your ability to be common sense, but also opportunistic about some of the things that people don't see. I would always use that common sense for leading with empathy, but also with, wow, this might be a good opportunity. Should we go for it? And getting everyone's buy-in. I think that's the only way you can be successful, really. And you get to decide what success is. Sometimes is, did we try three things this month? Yeah, great, we're successful. So, yeah,
So many things, so many directions I want to get into
please
from what
do.
you just shared. So, but the first one, because I love to make this podcast very practical, I just want to
Mhm.
zoom in a little bit on the decision trees.
Yes.
If you can maybe explain a little bit,
Mhm.
I'm not sure everybody who listens to the podcast have used them before, but just
Perfect.
give us an example of kind of a at what kind of context situations
Mhm.
you were using the decision trees, and how
Super.
did you make make it so that people it becomes part of the culture and people actually use them, not just when you set up the session,
Yeah.
but they start in what kind of context they can be useful for an
Mhm.
organization.
One really, really standout kind of example was that we often will get weekly reports where they tell us which type of colors are trending, or from visual merchandising team, they would tell us like, well, now this is trending, now that is trending, and we'll get the chance to digest that information. Let's assume they were sending it on a Monday morning. By Wednesday, we'll get to regroup in our team meeting and we'll say, hey, do we see anything useful from the latest information that they're providing? um, let's say pink is trending. Uh, do we have any merch that we can actually display? Back then, we were using very long SOAs. It took us ages to get some campaigns out there because we were operating for 19 markets. Localization takes forever. We were having a lot of SOAs that really require a lot of reverse engineering. So let's say if I want something to go live in 3 weeks, there are certain milestones that we have to reach. And with that Wednesday meeting, we are basically saying, would this still be applicable when we go live? And how much is the opportunity that we're seeking here to really include in our calendar? Because when I mentioned that the calendar is ready, we always leave a little bit of space to include things that we think it might move the needle. We decide on how much is the value that we're seeking from the investment that we will do. And then if that does not meet those requirements, you literally have, is this a real opportunity? Can we check with the buying team? Buying team then will say, well, this is the amount of products that we have. This is if we sell everything, what we can gain. This is the margin. So you have the main KPIs within it. And it's literally a very easy calculation to do, even on top of your head. Is this good enough? Is this not? We know exactly how much it takes us to produce a campaign. Sometimes we make it scrappy. Sometimes we feel like, oh, this is still an opportunity, but we don't need to wait for all the SOAs. So we have a lots of sleeves in our um, cards in our sleeves to make things faster. But what these decision trees are making you is everyone sees why we're taking this decision. So it's not a Kremena woke up this morning, feels like pink is the new campaign that we need to go. No, we have multiple occasions where we discuss preseason what we're going to do, and then we are very laser focused on, is this a real opportunity or not? Everyone is in the same room. There is nothing that is not being transparently done, and the way you reinforce it is that if it's a real opportunity, you keep bringing it back. Something that sticks around for more than 2 months usually is useful, but I will also argue that just because you do something for 3 months, is it still relevant? So we were very good at figuring out, oh, let's shift things around a bit. In big organizations, there is this trap of, but we've always done it this way. You need to be humble enough to really know, we've done it this way because it works, or we've done it this way because no one wants to change anything about it. And I think it takes a lot of both humble and courage from leadership to say, wait, can we find a better way to do it? The best way to do it is really ask your people, How do you feel about this? Is this still useful? I would notice if no one uses it for more than 3 months, or you have a chance to see who opened it, who didn't. I'm often on those calls, obviously, so it's easy to know if it's useful or not. But then you need to always ask, hey, was this good? Was this not? Yeah. An example of decision making trees, you can find beautiful templates to hype it up for your teams. You can make it fun depending on how what's the culture in your team. Mine were not like massively glorified, but very impactful and very easy to digest. So is this matching? Yes, you go to this one. If it's not, you kind of kill the idea before you invest more resources to further develop it. And it creates space for people to know that it's like, well, it's not about, oh, my idea was not good enough. No, we veto everyone's idea like that. um, and I think it creates also space and safety for everyone to say, I can bring ideas forward. And I think that's what true leadership needs to be about, hearing from everyone ideas that might be extremely, extremely good. Yeah, I hope that's useful. And if not, definitely come back to me. I still keep some of my decision trees.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd love to get some examples. So
yeah.
definitely, I would love to see some examples afterward. But uh, talking about building this culture, as you mentioned, I would love to hear a little bit more about that. Like,
Hmm.
and I'm totally with you. It's you don't have a magic pill and say do this thing, and in 2 days everybody has this trust and people are performing and they're engaged. That it takes time to cultivate such a culture, and
Hmm.
it's very much dependent on the leader. But I wonder what did you do? Obviously, you've been there in the company for 17 years, different departments and roles, so you gain a
Yeah.
lot of experience. You've tried many things. I would guess initially some worked, some didn't.
Yeah.
What did you find were some of those specific, call it, practices or mindsets that you've applied that helped and contributed for this culture of performance, of productivity, of creativity to be created?
Yeah. Yeah. So I read many books where people were telling you leadership is an inner work, and I was like, great, because I've been doing inner work for quite some time. And honestly, it really boils down to how you want to be um, with your team. If you're open and honest about some of the decisions that you need to make, and if you create this culture where you show up for who you truly are rather than playing a role that is not helpful for the team. We are way more intelligent creatures than we give ourselves credit, and people can sense your energetics around what do you mean by saying this. Or in the beginning, I had to translate many of my Bulgarian sayings in English that didn't translate very well. Um, but right now, they by now everyone was agreeing with, okay, she means this. And I have a very funny moment where I was asking a colleague of mine from Boston, and she was like, I was saying, "Do you know what I mean?" And she's like, "No, Kremena, no one knows what you mean," because sometimes you need to take time to explain that here is what my expectations, here is what I think was agreed, and it comes from the idea of always think no one understands what you mean until you have evidence that they do understand what you mean. Before we started recording, we spoke about assumptions. Just any conversation, you can't take for granted that people took away the same type of um, knowledge. So art of being yourself is really a lot of inner work. Luckily for me, I was always interested in that. And then you can imagine that when you see and when you have your own deep presence and you know exactly what's going on within you and you know exactly how you can come across, you don't have any barriers to speak with people openly. And it usually helps. For me, in the most difficult situations that I had to encounter, the only way to do it is that you sit with the uncomfortable situations, and it takes time to practice. Nobody teaches us how to feel our feelings. No one tells us about those things until it gets extremely difficult. And I think that if you're preparing every day for just coming across as what truly is going on within you and how you want to be remembered as a leader, it helps creating that environment where people trust each other. There were no behind the scenes. At least we will always make fun. It's like, oh, if you're not part of this WhatsApp group, it means you're the problem. So there are no 20,000 WhatsApp groups and whatnot. It's like if we have something to discuss, we discuss it openly. One way to do it is I've always created space for my team to come and approach me. And the way to do it is that you ask them in the beginning of every year, what's the commitment we want to have on the one on ones? Some people would like to see me every week. Some people would like to see me every quarter. Some people would like to see me in a very different setting. So I think the leadership is like being available for whatever the level of people want from you. Of course, you put your own boundaries, but if you ask them what would be a most service for you as me being there for you, and they can chip in and say, I really would like to walk with you rather than having another exhausting Teams meeting for 40 minutes, especially when we had to operate with hybrid, not hybrid, people in different locations, different time zones. So that availability, once you commit that you're available for your team, they get the chance to spend time with you or opt out of it. And sometimes it's better for their um, state to not communicate with their quote unquote boss that week. And that's okay as long as you know that things are fine with them. And this sense of people really know when you have their best interests at heart. I think that we can't underestimate that power. We can't mask or portray different things, and being humble about saying I made a mistake here, or like always be the one to say like, well, I misunderstood this, or help me understand that. And I think it's a lot of it comes from me teaching yoga constantly, and then you read people's bodies. They can't lie that, oh, this is so comfortable. Well, no, you end up in some positions that you're like, well, why is she even asking me this? And what's the attitude you have in going there? Are you trying to impress the teacher? Are you trying to impress yourself? A lot of those things are coming up in a class setting, but a lot of it is also in a complete obvious display in organizations. And I think it's really cool to be able to work with people. I think leadership is a big privilege, especially now that we'll have so many other tools that we can be working not with humans. I think it's the most big privilege to be actually with someone and working with them. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. But what we it's not what you do, it's how you do some of the things and how well you know yourself so that people can trust that you are like, wow, she's open about her vulnerability here. And I've always been very clear on I don't know all the answers, but I know we will find answers if that's where we want to put our energy into, and people sense it. And yeah.
A few years ago, I got hired by a
Hmm.
golf resort, and the general manager of the golf resort wanted me to come and do a session. And when he was briefing me, he said one of my biggest challenges these days is that even though I do my best, I'm trying my best to be there for my people, to be vulnerable, to show up. I still feel like people are afraid to share and to tell
Hmm.
me when I'm doing something wrong, when I'm making calls that are not good, even though I have the best intention. And my challenge is to get people to talk, to
Hmm.
speak up, and especially when the boss, either me or some of the managers, they maybe made a mistake. How do we get people to and over the years, Kremena, I've I've been doing a lot of work as a consultant, as a speaker, as a trainer, and I've
Hmm.
seen this topic coming again and again, especially
Hmm.
from more conscious, more leaders who are more aware and who want to improve and create this kind of space and environment. We'll have these conversations, and they'll share. I'm still not at the level that I want to be
Hmm.
in terms of honesty and in terms of freedom and safety for people to challenge me and to tell me what I need to hear. So I
Hmm.
wonder, what have you done to create a space where people are not afraid to tell you when you're not doing things right, or you're making a mistake, or just want to give you personal feedback.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm a worst critic. So anything that I think I've already thought about it, and I don't I'm not afraid to voice it. For me, um, it's very easy to emotional labor always been super easy for me. So sitting with discomfort and making sure that people know, like, wow, maybe I could have come across better in this pitch towards this or that, and I ask for feedback. The answer for asking for feedback is that you need to be prepared to hear it. And the way you are prepared to hear it is that people sense. If I say, hey, I need your input on, like, what's my game face, or was it clear, was it not, I need to be able to know, like, yeah, maybe you dropped the ball, and I'm okay with it. This doesn't mean I'm like the worst boss ever. We all have good days, we all have bad days, but the openness about the conversation starts within your own premises of saying, like, am I okay to hear what people might have to say? And also not taking everything personal, because yeah, of course we have days that we are overperforming, and there's days that is like, it's not my best day, and it's okay. But you give them permission to have the same, and you get the best out of your team because you are already open about the feedback that it might be so crushing. It's like, yeah, you really didn't get them with this, or you didn't. And that's okay, because if you are asking for really to improve something within you, it's great too. But if you also know that, you need to also find a way how to ask for it. Not every time is like, oh yeah, please open up, please open up. People need to have safe environments to do that. I'm a big believer in making sure that your nervous system is regulated so that you don't come and blast out like the first thing that comes to your mind. I do go to silence retreats for a reason. When I get to know what's going on in my own head, because we're over exposed to using our heads, and it's not a good neighborhood to only be. You need to embody some of the other parts of you. And when you hear your own critic, I trust me, there is nothing that a team member can tell you that can be not useful for you, because you've already sat with yourself deeply enough to know, like, hey, I'm always doing this. You recognize your own patterns. And it's such a beautiful way to be leading teams, because everyone that comes to your team brings different perspective, and you can see, like, I'm learning so much from this person, I'm learning so much from that person, I'm learning so much about myself through relationship with this person. And we often forget that it's all intertwined, but nothing is personal. And I think the biggest thing you can do is really be extremely open. People sense that. You create a safe space for them by making sure that they can sense, I can handle any of the feedback. And and maybe it's inherited issue, and it's very difficult then for a leader to step in and say, from now on I really value trust, and therefore you need to be super. You kind of need to give them enough evidence that that's okay. And if no one gets punished for speaking their mind, guess what? People will be really, really excited to speak their minds, because everyone wants to be seen, heard, all those small things that we underestimate, but they make a big difference in team structures and their input. Yeah.
And it's a delicate balance, right? Because you want everybody to speak their minds, but not every idea will move forward.
Yeah. But this is the other thing about not having any elitarism of ideas. So, oh, my idea is best because of, well, if there is evidence that this idea might work, we all chip in to go for it, and that creates a massive, massive trust in the team. So it's not only with feedback; it's with everything you do. That's why I'm saying is like, you can't come across in one place in this manner, in another place completely different. You need to bring your full self to every aspects of everything you do, so then people know, oh, this person is trustworthy. Why? Because they said they'll do X, Y, and Z. And if they don't, then you give them the reasons, and it's totally up to them how they'll handle that type of information. I think it's a very, very profound work if you want to do your work well as a leader, because it's not about the title, it's not about the interactions you have on a weekly, daily basis, hourly basis. It's about how well you know yourself so that you can come across the way you want to. So you keeping your integrity in anything you do, and people really resonate with it. Because I mean, life is way too short to be pretending that we know what we're doing. And the cosmic joke of, taking yourself serious on just because right now you're having this title and everyone does what you tell them to do, it's so passe. It's so has absolutely no space going forward in any setting, to be honest. Yeah.
Some people are not specifically good in receiving feedback. Some people emotional, sensitive, they struggle to receive feedback. And I wonder, as a leader, have you had such people that you manage? And what would you do in order for the feedback session to be effective?
hmm hmm I think a setting is very important. I don't want anyone to come to a meeting where they don't know, oh, this is going to be now the time where you kind of use your judgment, right? I keep saying half of it is common sense, the other half is sense the room. If people are not in the same room, it's more difficult, but there are ways to sense even online, like what's the energetic? Is this person really now going to hear your feedback? Or is it really needed? Is it required? And again, this idea of being available for your team members when they actually want to speak with you makes feedback so much easier. You don't need to be this immediate sometimes feedback that can be very demotivating. I like it because then you move forward. But some people don't like it like that, and then you figure it out when is the best time to give them the feedback. And if there is an emotional reaction to it, more often it's not rooted into what is currently going on. We forget that people we work with have so many other things going on in their lives, and very small part of who they are is showing up in at work, which we would love to see more of their full capacity, their full. Someone was speaking about why full potential is a bad word nowadays. And if you show up to your full capacity at the day, is much better than full potential. Well, you might have a great potential, but my capacity today is to have just this call and then I'll have a massive nap. That's my capacity today. Does it mean that's my full potential? Absolutely not. But would I take it as like, oh, wow, today I did great? Yes. And how we speak to ourselves is a massive thing. So really use the common sense to see when people can get the feedback, and is your feedback coming from a place of truthfulness, of something that will be beneficial for their career? Is it only your opinion? Was it verified? I think we can do a lot of damage as leaders to give feedback that is uh, only internalized, because we project a lot of the stuff. And I believe that it's really, really, again, going back to your internal work, is like, ooh, would this piece of advice be useful? And am I saying it because I want people to behave some certain way? It takes a lot of courage to debunk your own limiting beliefs around what people are there to do, or actually what are there to experience by being in your leadership realm. So I always think that if people want to have coffee with you afterwards, that they worked with you, it's a good sign. If they don't, it's not, and it's okay, because some people just need to be for a limited amount of time with you to learn the lessons that you have for them and move on, and that's okay. It's no different from when suddenly you don't see students that been with you forever and you're like, well, life goes on for them, life goes on for me. You only share what you learn, and you hope it's useful, but you don't withdraw who you are, or you don't, you know just bombard them with feedback because this is what I think about you, or this is how I feel about you. Well, great. How is that useful for the person receiving it?
And
Yeah.
this is a really important point.
Yeah.
It's the intention. um, we are all going to make mistakes in terms of the wrong timing, or the way we provide the feedback, like not reading the situation. I mean, it happens, but if you have the intention and make it clear that this is
Mm.
my intention is to help everybody to be better. It's not nothing personal. You're here with us because I trust you and I believe in you. And like, if that's clear, it's part of the culture, and you show people over and over and over again that you trust them. It's not about them. It's nothing personal. But feedback is a good thing for all of us because it will make us grow. And it's, it's two sided, not
Yeah,
just
but we always don't know what people had prior to joining any of the organizations as response to how they were parenting, and I think we see people as really monodimensional in environments like work, and we bring everything that happened to us to the table in one way or another. If we don't consciously do that to bring it intentionally out there, we will do it in a subtle way where it's not benefiting. So, what I mean by that is that imagine if I was growing up in a family where feedback was really harsh or given in a different manner, I'll have a completely different reaction to what my boss is telling me as a feedback. But if it comes from a place where I was okay to receive feedback because I understood the message is that I'm fundamentally okay. If I make a mistake, I'm fundamentally okay. I will just be able to do things better. So there is a massive difference there. I'm not saying that every leader has to have a psychology degree and whatnot, but it's like this common sense of knowing, wow, words and intentions matter, how we deliver messages matter, but then also creating the space and taking time from our busy schedule to create the best outcome for everyone involved matters even more. And then again, ask yourself about, is there something I'm trying to achieve here? And if it's not a goal that is really sitting well with your integrity, is this feedback really going to be needed in that manner? So it's a lot of self work, it's a lot of questioning yourself, but not to the extent to beat yourself up for everything you do. It's about, hey, I have an opportunity now to say X, Y, and Z and sleep on it. I always say, like, okay, if you have especially negative feedback to give or things that are, oh, yeah, you have gazillion things to improve, it can happen and it's great. But then you can digest that information and how you can deliver it. It's a great learning skill for you as a leader to deliver that type of information, but go again to know that you don't know much about that person if you haven't had the chance to really integrate them in your team properly by seeing for who they really are, not just the small pieces of what they show you. um, yeah, I think it's fascinating that we get to do this type of work in current environments. Is just mind-blowing, really.
it is, and I
Mm.
wonder if you can maybe, if we can invite you here to maybe be even more vulnerable, uh,
Mhm.
and and I'm curious to hear some thoughts on, has there been any leadership mindsets or style of leading that you believe to be the right way to lead, but then you started implementing that in your career and ended up a complete mess, or at least not working out? What were some of those, perceptions? I mean, early in my career, I had a lot of those ideas that as a manager you need to push people to get things done, and that was a main goal, and it backfired, right?
Of
Because
course.
people don't want a dictator to go there and to push you. We will deliver results short term, but everybody will be demotivated. And if I reflect backwards, I'll be like, oh my god, like what I was doing, So what was it for you? Some of those perceptions that ended up being not what you believe in today.
I think we all fall for the trap of not having the right role models of what leadership is. If you think about it, we pick up the most inputs from both our culture, our families. Those are the first leaders kind of we have in our environment, and then we pick up some of those ideas. It's like, well, if they tell me to do it like this, I'll do it like that. And if it goes from there, and then we pick up some other role models that we are thinking, wow, surely in a current modern day, this is how it's done. For female, I would say that it's actually even harder because in many times in my early career, I actually thought I have to be extremely assertive, my nickname, and I think I mentioned it to you, used to be the Kremenator. And I took big pride in it. I was like, oh, I get stuff done and it's so cool. And I was striving on that. But honestly, that's not who I am. So my leadership really kicked in when I figured out, well, you cannot lead by being someone else or by being what the current environment requires you to be. That's what you describe. Like, okay, that's management. We pay people to deliver to deliver services and inputs and KPIs, and that's managing the stuff. When you step into leadership, where you don't manage stuff, you are responsible for the well-being of the people that will deliver outstanding results, and the only thing you have to do is lead by the example that is so difficult to cultivate. Why? Because we're not given the chance to sit with ourselves. Many of the organizations do this massive self-development here and self-development there, and like we I love it. Don't get me wrong. I was a self-development junkie for many reasons. I'm deconstructing that, but the idea here is that what if we stop paying attention to the self and the individualistic mono uh, lens, and we start looking into the, but what's my real purpose here? What the soul has to do with it? We're outsourcing so many of our resources, not just our mental capacities at the moment, but also everything else we are doing. So what's left here is to explore is like who we truly are and bring the full self to any organization that will be benefiting from our skills. And those skills are just being attuned to other people. Often we think, oh, that's is this a skill? Yeah, it's a skill to read the room. It's a skill to be able to actually provide inputs for everyone's well-being and help them grow. Um, I was very proud to be called the Criminator, and it didn't backfire, but I didn't like the person I was becoming. And I think this internal dialogue that you need to create is extremely important. Why? Because then you can't hide behind, oh yeah, this facade of things are perfect. I can do anything. Give me another project. Give me 1,500 other projects. Why? Because I need to prove that I do deserve to have this massive X, Y, and Z teams. There is a moment where you need to start desiring higher, right? Before you start desiring more, and 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 then everything changes. Everything clicks in place, and it's a beautiful place to be leading from that landscape, internal one, rather than we're gonna crush the numbers, which we happen to be doing as well, but you do it differently. Um, it didn't backfire, but I didn't like who I was becoming. I didn't want to have this guarded self that I can crack any project, I can do anything. It builds self-confidence, but it's a very fake self-confidence. It's a needed version of you to build that trust, but the real self-confidence that you get from getting to know that it's okay if we do X or if it's okay if we do Y. I think that's where it gets very, very powerful.
I couldn't
Yeah.
agree anymore. Couldn't agree anymore. Last week I was speaking at an event. Shout out to Disrupt HR Sofia. And we had to do a 5 minute speech, and every 15 seconds your slides are changing. So it was a very interesting format for somebody who likes to talk a lot, like myself. I had to practice many times to fit within this frame. But my core message for this 5 minute was that to build such a culture, to simplify, there's two things you want to focus on. Number one, focus on productivity,
Mm,
getting results, making sure we as a team deliver on the goals, on the KPIs, we have structure, efficiency. And then number two, care for the people,
mm,
creating an environment where people are feeling satisfied, fulfilled, motivated, engaged, they're being taken care of. And as a leader, if you wake up in the morning and if that's your intention, how do I ensure that we produce the results while we're also caring for the people? And it's a dance. I think it's an art. It's a dance, right? It's a
But the artistry, I would argue that if you put the people first, you will never go wrong. That's what I've learned, because those are the folks that will actually be extremely, extremely productive when they think that and feel. and know that they're taken care of. Because what will happen with only productivity is that next quarter will be bigger, next quarter will be bigger, next quarter will be even bigger. And therefore you create this vicious circle of, oh wow, this was never enough, never enough, never enough. And what it will do to any team structure is this continuous rush for this next quarter, and it's exhausting. Quite frankly, I think if you have a visionary leadership, it will not be about the next quarter. Next quarter, it will be where we want to be and how we get there, and creating structures within the organizations that allow us all to bring the best work forward. Then those quarterly targets will be a joke because you have everyone's buy-in that this is what we are, this is the contract we're signing. Like, people are very intelligent. You don't hire people that are in under different illusions, but you get to lead teams that have a very, very clear understanding of why they're there. Sense of belonging, sense of really overachieving for the right reasons. And I think that's where we will be winning as winning culture. I
And
also
that's
hate those who are winning, and you win by
but
showing
that's the
up who you
point.
are.
But that's the point. Like as you said, the when you care for the people, the results automatically start improving. Maybe
Hmm.
not today, maybe not this week, this month, but within a few months, within a year or two, y- you care for people. And caring for people, by the way, is not the sweet and nice and just the like the soft thing. It's caring
Sometimes it's
means you
being
gotta give
honest.
the tough feedback. You gotta set the ambitious goals, and you have to clarify, help people to be better in time management, in whatever it is they do. So caring means really growing your people, taking care of your people, creating
Hmm.
an environment in which they can produce these results. So but when you do that consistently, it's a human thing. It's a human thing. In Kremena, I wanna give a word to. We had a question.
Yes,
I think it's a
please.
good question for. So first of all, Vladimir is joining us here.
Super.
Great to have you on the podcast, Vladimir. And his question is: any tips, practical examples on stepping up from managing
Mhm.
to leading? And there is a
Thank you.
continuation. There's a continuation. He clarifies, maybe hire the right role to replace your managing functions. So I'm coming back to the core question, putting it here on the screen.
Hmm.
Cremera, the floor is yours.
Super. Thanks for that question. There will be a level of organization where you require to have only managers, and that's totally okay. And I would say that stepping into leadership will come either by creating the right blueprint. The right blueprint will mean that you actually have the right amount of people that will deliver the results that your organization wants to have. So, what's sometimes really difficult to do is that you're requiring from both the leader to be the manager and vice versa. And that's this duality of like, wow, but they pay me to deliver the I don't know, you have a very clear KPI in mind, but what the people want is a leader, or vice versa. So that's the common sense and the internal dialogue that you need to have to say, do they really need me now to be their leader? Where do I need to show up as this visionary that cares for them? And where do we need to go to very tactical and very practical about, hey, is the deadline here? Have we delivered on this? So the practical example will be, you look at your ear and you figure out when are the most inputs that you need to be giving with the tangible results. The tangible results can be crushing your numbers. In my field was very easy to find KPIs that you can link to your work. But with some of the brand campaigns was not so easy. Then you need to wait 6 months till you over deliver or showcase for your work. You sit and you outline that before you start the year, and then you map out all your touch points with all the key stakeholders to say, okay, how would I handle the bulk of the work, and where do I have pockets of times where I can step up into my leadership? I think if you don't plan it and live it by luck and don't orchestrate it, it's easy to stay only in one of the roles. Everyone wants to portray themselves as the visionary, but if the rest of the things are not done and you don't have the people to do it, it's very hard, and vice versa. if you don't have the right people to look up to as leaders, it all can easily fall down. So I think the right amount of capital, like human capital, you need to have there to actually make sure that the structures are really well. If you happen to be doing both, be very, very intentional about where you spend your time. Look at the year and showcase with a different hat when it's more required so that you can really benefit from using your skills in both ways, but very intentional about it. I
A
hope
couple
it
of things I
helps.
want a couple of things
Mhm.
I want to add on top of that, without knowing the context of Vladimir. But many people get promoted to be managers, and they were probably expert in a specific thing. But now they have to manage and lead people, and sometimes they could be good in creating the efficiency, the systems, delegation, right, the management kind of, but not necessarily naturally being the leaders. But keep in mind, nobody was born a leader. You just have to try things out. Ask for advice. Who are the leaders in the organization or outside the organization that you can learn from. Have a conversation. Be vulnerable. Talk to them. I'm a promoter of the kind of sit together with your team. Hey guys, this is my first leadership role. I want to do my best. So you got to help me out. I'm more a management type, so I might be sometimes more focused on KPIs and efficiency. Please come to me and tell me if I'm overstepping, or like just have these conversations. You know, there's so much good stuff out there, right? Podcasts, you have books, you have role models. Get a mentor, get somebody that you can share this. Get a coach, right? Like talk to Kremena. Just there's so many things you can do, and it's you're probably not gonna find your leadership style and like tomorrow. Don't try to be perfect. Just try to be a little bit better every day. Like try something, do a one-on-one with somebody, reflect on that. Next time, do it better. It's just this commitment. Like you put on the caring leader hat in the morning, just imaginary caring leader hat. Okay, what can I do today to be a caring leader on top of my management?
Yeah, and it's a great already the fact that you're asking yourself this question is a good sign. I wanted to say that many people, as you mentioned, Stian, is like you get appointed for this role. It takes time till you settle in, 6 to 9 months until you know exactly what's going on. But this internal dialogue that I speak of is extremely crucial. Your body will give you senses what's comfortable for you and what's not. If we pretend we're someone else or we take other people's rules from their book, um, it might take longer is my point. So I no longer subscribe for many of the things I thought were correct back then. So you get to decide on, oh, is this true? How does it feel? Does it sit well with me? Does it not? And then you craft your own toolkit. I definitely retire from many of the tools I've learned early in my career because they were really not suitable for me. I mentioned I was becoming someone I'm not. But start with trying and see if it sits well. I know it sounds very, what does it mean? Those are practices that really tell you what's truly going on.
And
Yeah.
maybe just another dimension, something to add to that is the pay attention to the context. You might get a lot of inspiration. I love reading leadership books and
Hmm.
biographies and learn from them. However, you got to adapt it, because I don't know what industry you're in. The industry, the dynamics of the team, how do you operate? Uh, do you guys work together in an office? Is it hybrid? People are part time? And then the other part is the who are you working with? I mean, I used to be a
Hmm.
movie producer. On a movie set as a producer, I need to be a little bit of a chameleon, because the way I lead the director of the movie, it's going to be very different than the way I talk to the editor or the way I talk to the actors who love to be in front and they want all the attention, and the way you motivate everybody and show up for everybody will be different. So
Hmm.
Chris Williams, the he was a former CHRO or chief HR officer, vice president in at Microsoft. He was directly reporting to Bill Gates. He was a guest on the podcast. Go check out this episode. But he probably four times during the episode mentioned leadership is an individual. It's not a team sport. It's an individual sport. It's a one-on-one kind of thing, because you gotta get to know your people, and you have to lead them the way they need to be led.
Mm.
And everybody's different, so you have to learn, you have to try things out, have the conversations. But if you prioritize space and time for your leadership things, then you'll figure it out. You'll figure it
Mhm.
out. But not to stay here, because Cremena has stuff to do, and it's been crazy. But 65 minutes already are gone. I don't know where it went this time, but I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation so far. I just want to kind of wrap up, Cremena, to sort of this whole episode is, um, what are you excited about these days? We spoke a lot about leadership. We spoke about the leading teams, your journey, and I'm really grateful. We'll have you back on the podcast to talk about what do you do these days. But just in a couple of minutes, if you can give us an
Absolutely.
idea, after these 70 years in Reebok and Adidas, what are you up to these days? What is your focus? What are you excited? What is the kind of difference you're excited to make?
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. Obviously, there is a lot to digest after being for so many years, but just being able to share the knowledge that you acquire and tapping into really applying your skills for topics that are dear to your heart, which is we want to see leadership changing, leadership being taken serious as a internal work rather than, oh, right now we're doing this and next time we're doing that. So I'm very much focused on speaking as often as I can about how we brew cultures that actually function so that we don't get the chance to have too many burnouts. Female leadership is a dear to my heart topic, but it doesn't need to be a female leadership. It just happens to be that we do have differences in how we experience some of the harsh realities about what it's like to have a fulfilling life and thriving career. Um, what excites me is that this type of conversations are more obvious and that people don't need to abdicate from any practices that allow them to have an internal dialogue. And that's what I go and brag about to anyone that will listen because it is a deeply internal work. And if you misunderstand the topic, it's it's not in your benefit. It's really exciting to be doing the work in parallel and the next project that really scares me, which aka means excites me, is finishing the book that I'm writing already for quite some years. And you've been a massive inspiration as well, Stoyan. We spoke about it, but that's what it. Where is the you just need to show more of who you are. And one modality is speaking, the other modality is putting together ways that helped you so that it can be more in depth. And when people ask, but what do you truly do in the morning? You can describe it and maybe it's helpful for them. Yeah, that's the deep desire I have. And the intention is that if anyone finds it useful to figure out how to craft a career next to a spiritual practice. Um, I've done it for the longest time and keen to share more of it.
And just tell the audience, please,
Mhm.
how can they get in touch with you? By the way, guys, Cremena is an international speaker. She's speaking at
Yeah.
events. If you're an event producer, consider getting in touch. She
Thank you
has
for
a
the
lot to
shout out.
share. But please let us know, how can you help people specifically, and where can they get in touch?
Absolutely. So you'll find me on all the social media like LinkedIn and all those available. What I do is I focus on leadership retreats. Those are the ones that I really make a big difference because we use modalities such as yoga, meditation, and personal leadership. There will be a couple of them this year, and for next year they are still on the wait list for the schedule. I do keynotes, and I definitely have programs that are deeply rooted in mentorship. I believe that a long stretch relationship with someone within their career is the way to go through. So you can connect me, and I will definitely share more of my offerings. What I focus on is the somatic experiences that you know what's going on and you can take action rather than reacting, and you can be more responsive into what's truly going on. And it is a very inviting space, but it's a work that requires a big commitment. It's not a fast stretch and 3 months and you'll be brand new. I know my leadership took quite some time, and if you're called to actually work within the premises of your inner work, reach out and I'll be happy to share everything I know. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kremena. And once again, I just want to remind everybody this is episode 189 of Productivity Mastery. And if there's one thing I want to ask everybody listening, if you enjoyed this episode, is please subscribe to the podcast. We are on every major platform. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, you name it. It helps us. Every subscription helps us to bring incredible people here, like Kremena. Recently, we had the chance to have on the podcast Guy Kawasaki. We had David Allen, GTD guy. We had a bunch of incredible leaders. So thank you so much for being with us to the end of the episode. First of all, and yes, keep performing. What can I say? It's a journey. It's a dance. So we're gonna keep going. Thank you so much, Kremena, for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Stay well.